You've got a degree now, what? Good morning all, how are we? You'll notice that I'm in my pyjamas and slippers. Well done Paco on his keynote speech. Callan here tells me I'm not able to walk past here because then he can't video it. I says never let the video presentation overview your own input. Eamonn Keane is my name. I work for Police Scotland. I'm currently on secondment to the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. I work very closely with Mr. Gerry Grant here. Gerry, put your hand up and wave. Gerry is just, how long have you left Abertay? When did you graduate?
I graduated in July 2017.
Graduated in July 2017. And he's working for us now, head of the ethical hacking team. So, why do Police Scotland get involved in this? Right? You've got your degree, now what? Over the next half an hour, 40 minutes, I just want to show you some of the opportunities you will have at this optimum time for cybersecurity. I think it's a fantastic environment at the moment in regards to, right, we have a shortage of professionals in the industry, but an ever growing range of roles. Now, I spend a lot of time with the Abertay hackers. I spend a lot of time in Abertay and I spend a lot of time in universities. And people say, Eamonn, I don't want to do forensics. No way. Don't want to look at indecent images of children. I'll explain a little bit more of that and how our roles within Police Scotland, within industry, are extending. Yeah, do you want to spend your 24/7 or working as a SOC analyst? Do you want to work in the various other kind of cyber investigations? Live investigations, RAM dumping, going out dealing with the incident. Yeah, the forthright will be getting the business up and running, but there are issues along the way. So, I was going to play that video, but I'll play the video. So our job is kind of to get business ready in regards to the fact that in my environment, traditional crime is moving to that online environment. 54% of acquisitive crime is committed online. So over the next course of 20 minutes or 40 minutes, we'll speak about why we do what we do. I want to speak to you about your career and your career pathways, and I want to speak about your options. The why we do what we do. I want to speak about the current threat landscape in regards to not only from a national perspective, but Scottish, national, UK and global. It's not just indecent images, and I'll try and get that message across. The opportunities are available to you, some practical advice, and we'll finish up with a Q&A. Why we do what we do, and after the cybersecurity strategy that came out from the UK government in 2015, we've seen the Scottish government take that up in regards to their strategy. It's all about a more resilient Scotland. It's all about creating jobs, prosperity and wealth. And it's also about creating opportunity in regards to making Scotland much more resilient. And working with the likes of the NCSC, who we work very closely with, the NCCU, it's, for me, it is about creating that wealth. And I'm parochial about what's going on in Scotland, and we would like to keep you in Scotland. We know that the gravy train goes south, and I know the bright lights of London and Manchester are very exciting for young people. But equally, we've lots of good things going on in the Central Belt, Aberdeen, and the Tay Cities deal. So we've lots of organisations coming to Scotland, global FTSE 100 companies, building their SOCs, building their labs, building their base in Scotland. And what knows, with Brexit, maybe we need to keep the eye on the ball there. Yeah, lots of good things going on in Scotland, and we have fantastic products coming out of our 16 to 18 universities and colleges. Abertay ethical hacking degrees, world renowned. We equally have a very good degree programs in this field in other areas in the other universities located around Scotland. What we need to do, and when I refer to we as employers and strategists and policymakers, is we need to close that gap. We anticipate that there'll be something in the region of, anybody care to hazard a guess? Can you read that actually? How many vacancies will we have in IT and cybersecurity? This was last year's figure. Anybody want to throw me a? D. C. And growing, but thank you for contributing. We also have an aging workforce in regards to the fact that you see me in front of you as a senior police officer, but also in regards to the 70 forensic analysts I employ across Police Scotland, but also in lots of your CISO security teams, in regards to your threat landscape teams in the organisations. It is an aging workforce. So we're trying to change that. And in fact, I'm delighted to see so many girls in the audience because we really want to encourage that in regards to females into the industry. You can't really read the salaries, and that's only 2015, and that's London, and Edinburgh is not lagging far behind. And when I say Edinburgh there, I'll include Dundee, Aberdeen, but that's 2 years old. So you have lots of opportunity. In Police Scotland, our challenge is growing every day. And I've put this up here in regards to the range of stuff we have to investigate. Every crime has a digital footprint now, in regards to whether that's the forensic analysis of a phone, laptop, computer, but also looking at the more live investigations now, in regards to going out to a company to investigate that ransomware attack, that DDoS attack, that cross-scripting attack, in regards to we need the skills, and we need to give our staff the skills to investigate that crime. And that's the type of individual we're hoping to employ. We are employing, and we have people from Abertay University on our books in many capacity as cybercrime investigators, but also forensic analysts. But what really works well is that young technologist with the more elderly or more experienced detective. So sometimes I have problems focusing the mind of the young technologists who want to go off and write Python code in regards to reverse engineering whatever's come in without asking the basic questions first. Follow the money. So that works really well for us. And many roles we have here, I'll skip through this fairly quickly, but these are the principal roles, but ever increasing is our cybercrime investigators. Now, I could throw you out there, what is a cybercrime investigator? Anybody want to tell me what a cybercrime investigator would do? Audience participation is good before I start picking on you.
Someone who investigates cybercrime.
Wow. Well done. Then, tell me what cybercrime is. You get a prize. Come down to me later on. Any crime that has a digital element to it. And that's a challenge for us in regards to the fact that it's global, it's international, it's automated, it's not necessarily targeted, and it's a crime. And that's our job as police officers in regards to identify that criminality. I make no apologies for standing before you as a police officer in regards to the fact that, you know, tonight there'll be a different, when you're have had all your free bar and loads of pints and you're on your way home, if somebody assaults you, that's the job of the policeman to identify the bad guy who's done that. It's the same in cybercrime. And we will speak about various groups, whether it's the Syrian Electronic Army, whether it's Anonymous back on the scene again, whether it's Lutz. Really what I want to try and get over to you today is not to do something stupid that would stop you catapulting your career by some stupid minor conviction that you could get for doing something naughty that you shouldn't have done. Hence your career in Australia and America and such like. So how good are you? How good are you at finding the mouse to play this video?
These guys are good. Let's get to work. Our little startup with a great idea. They're talking a purpose. This is in 12 countries, 5,000 staff. You think they'd be secure? Make some noise. confidential information hidden in the depths of the system.
Still here?
Ah, the computer's crashed.
Right, see you Monday.
That's okay, so right now the chances are someone, somewhere is attacking you. You don't even know it. Okay, chaps, we're in. I bet you're wondering how they got this far. This is slow. Lovely. She's in. Sensitive passwords and system details from a keystroke logger hidden under a desk for 6 months. These guys, they know it all. Except, a few weeks earlier, a progress was hit by a smaller breach. It made the board stop. I think they're vulnerable. It's not really experts. It's never just an IT issue. They carried out cybersecurity training from building to basement, identifying what was critical to the business. Threat and intelligence monitoring. They carried a cyber incident response and built their own ethical hackers to test the systems and make honeypots to trap the attackers. They reviewed the whole business from New York to Tokyo and devised a game plan for any breach.
It's a demand of service attack. Just one for the situation.
I think I'm getting about.
She goes back to the woods. I think so.
They're on to us.
What's that like?
Is it working? All I need to know is it working?
How long's your work? Good. But not good enough.
You're okay. Traffic's blocked.
You can win, but there's always a next time. Who's next?
Overarching tech.
Criminals just get smarter.
Who off the smoke screen?
Take your pick. And they will. The breach will happen. And when it does, will you be ready?
So that's an industry manufactured video, but it's interesting to say Nina launch a worm. So there's a challenge for the transition of serious cybercrime, and I like to use the word cybercrime in respect of those offences against the Computer Misuse Act. Those offences where we're specifically using a device or an infrastructure to attack an infrastructure. I'm generally not interested in the operations that we investigate or that I manage or the low volume stuff, but it's very much a concern for us, and we have to employ people to address that. We're working very closely with our colleagues across the country in regards to the other regions. We're working quite closely with the Met. We're working closely with the National Cybercrime Unit, EC3 and the FBI because of the international nature of our inquiries. If you think about WannaCry when it was launched in regards to where did that come from? If you think about some of the attacks that we've seen recently, the high profile ones in regards to TalkTalk, Tesco, I'll go through a few more. It's international. And is it proportionate for law enforcement in Scotland, based in Aberdeen, to send off somebody over to Eastern European destination to try and identify the person responsible for that exploit. I mentioned forensics earlier, and I will not get away from the very good grounding you will get in forensics. You've got your degree, fantastic. Yes, absolutely. You've proved that you can do this stuff, you want to do this stuff, you like this stuff. Yes, you can come in at many various vectors, for want of a better word, into Police Scotland. And a lot of our staff starts in the forensic in regards to the examination of machines. And that, you can imagine now, has extended so much in the last couple of years in regards to the fact that if you think about the amount of devices you have in just even probably your bag, think of the amount of devices that are in your home now as opposed to 5 years ago. So we're seeing that in the petabytes, zettabytes, terabytes of data that we're getting in one individual inquiry. And it's a constant challenge for us to make sure that we can get through and find that needle in the needle of haystacks. But not only do we need to find the evidence or to expedite that inquiry, more importantly, we need to find the exculpatory material that may prove someone's innocence in a crime. So, forensics can be boring, but again, like everything else, it can be a bit of fun. That's Kyle and Mikey when they were down working with us in the Scottish Business Resilience Centre a couple of weeks ago. Something else that kind of shows the range of activities that we have to get involved in, and I use this because it demonstrates what we're involved in very quickly.
Schmidt, Peters, Jansen, Hermans. Is your son home?
Yes, he's up in his room. Come in. Hi, is Classy here? Yeah, upstairs. Well then, we'll go up and try out some keepy stuff. Yeah, okay.
Good location.
Up there.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Is this little Anna? You've got a nice bunny. Come on, I'll show you a real bunny.
That is kind of a horrible video at the end of it, and it's been going around for quite a while, but it typifies for me at the end, or stereotypifies the sexual offender, which I don't like. But with the fantastic thing that is the internet, we have seen that increased criminality in people who want to abuse the vulnerable and young in our society. And again, that's not necessarily something I want to speak to you about today, but it's one of the range of challenges we have in policing. Organised crime. I'll just, a couple of war stories here in regards to this was an individual gang who were just recently jailed for 87 years. Their principal criminality was the importation of Class A drugs, kidnapping gang members and members of the public in Scotland, brutally assaulting them and intimidating them into all sorts of drug importation, human trafficking and such like. And I suppose why I highlight this gang in regards to, this is the transition in regards to what's happening, we're seeing in policing. They're using encrypted devices. They're communicating via emails that are draft emails. There's many forms that, and this is just one gang who are using jammer devices to prevent surveillance. And that's a challenge for us to overcome that encryption, and that's a whole debate for another day. But that's another area of organised crime. This was an individual who was using lists from Pastebin in regards to identifying people who had fairly good accounts. They were putting family members into two family members they put into a call centre in a certain bank who were sending the accounts back to the broiler room so people could make the phone calls. When we washed the money through forensic accounting, it came to 113 million. They were resident in Glasgow, Dundee and Aberdeen. I don't know whether you saw this one, but I mentioned about the real to the virtual, but this was a guy who was kidnapped they broke into his house at gunpoint because he was a Bitcoin trader. Kidnapped him because he had a very, very wealthy wallet of Bitcoins. When he started out on that journey, like you won't ask who's got Bitcoins in the audience or who's mining Bitcoins, but we all know how much it's fluctuated in currency. But here we have somebody held at gunpoint for their Bitcoin wallet. And I suppose some of our involvement from a Police Scotland perspective is, yes, looking at blockchain analysis, looking at following that wallet. because we know lots of money laundering is going on in there. We have a duty to identify that, and there's lots of good research and development going on across the country in regards to that process. You've seen that video before, and that's some of the challenges we have in what we're doing in cyber. So our principal duties are in regards to forensic examination. Yes, cybercrime investigations and OSINT stuff in regards to, that's basic stuff. Before you even leave the office in regards to investigation crime, I would expect you to use your OSINT tools in regards to identifying who's involved in this. And we know that we're putting so much more, and the rest is pretty basic stuff that you'll be aware of. But we also have to look after, we're now the second biggest force in the UK. So we need to make sure that our infrastructure and our system is safe. We have our own SOC, our own SIM. QRadar, Nessus, Metasploit, we will use those tools. We will, Alienware. Yeah, we need to, and as a police force, you will imagine that how often we're being attacked. And again, these are some of the jobs that we have in Police Scotland. And that full range of cybersecurity in regards to, you've left here or you're leaving here as an ethical hacker. And I want to encourage you to broaden those skills into all these areas. We'll also speak about your own behavioural competencies in regards to your interview skills and what we see and what I see in interview boards in regards to sitting beside people in industry in regards to where some students could do better. So what's being reported to us? I'm more concerned actually about what's not being reported to us. We're improving because we're out there and we're speaking to people in regards to cyber crime. So cyber-enabled crime, cyber-dependent crime, or your digital footprint. And the tide is changing in regards to people are reporting to us more. Certainly, there's reasons that people will not report. Financial houses will not report for brand reputation. Just think of Cambridge Analytica. Just think of TalkTalk. Just think of the nosedive in Facebook's in regards to after that recent incident. And so the usual suspects are there. Malware proliferation by so many, many means. Phishing, ransomware, the hacker, and social engineering. Go into them in a little bit more detail. And here are some of the recent attacks that, yeah, we've seen and been reported to us. Some of them older than they should be. This was WannaCry. Was WannaCry not a vulnerability in, actually, what was WannaCry? What was the vulnerability in WannaCry? Yeah, but what was the actual vulnerability from a technical perspective? Thank you. Now, for the holiday for two in Acapulco and 50 grand thrown in, where was that previously seen? I'm not hearing the answer. Too recent. Have a look. Go back. Gerry, you? That vulnerability was seen in the worm configure back in 2008. That caused carnage to many, many more systems than WannaCry. So we as security individuals, we didn't patch. The patch for WannaCry was released in March, correct? When did WannaCry launch? And actually, I'll even go a little bit further. What time of day did it launch? First detected? Usual, about 5 o'clock on a Friday evening when we're all going on the beer. So, it's not something we've seen before. We had to dispatch teams because we had 14 NHS trusts attacked in Scotland. So we have limited resources in regards to our capability around going out and looking at the logs and absolutely examining what the payload was there. And that's the challenge for us to make sure that doesn't, and we're ready for it when it happens again, because it will happen again. We still have things like, in regards to, this is just around phishing and spoofing frauds. And it always surprises me, senior people and senior executives in organizations who have no checks and balances, but will, on a Friday afternoon, yeah, can you send that check to this account? Now, there's a little bit of hacking going on there too, in regards to identifying the premium accounts. There's organised crime gangs looking at LinkedIn, looking at your social media profile. They'll spend 6 months, 6 weeks looking at that organisation. And hence I say to you, in regards to, yes, ethical hacking. You will break into any system, come out of here, no problem at all. Any Wi-Fi vulnerability, crack, whatever. What I want you to do is think broader than the range of skills that you have. And just there, 2 to 3 months ago, about 2 million in 1 month lost to phishing frauds. And I suppose for us in government, and this is what we have to do to protect in regards to, have we a vulnerability within our critical national infrastructure? That's a question. You're all very quiet. In regards to the vulnerability around our PLCs, the silver shiny stuff in most of our critical national infrastructure is from the Far East. Who has control of that? Is there a back door into that? So these are just some examples that we have to address from a national perspective. And that was Saudi Aramco's in regards to the fact that the cyber attack wiped out something in the region of about 140,000 PCs. If that happened in Grangemouth, how would we deal with it? The fact that somebody could get a backdoor into a petrochemical company in Saudi Arabia and could start mixing up the centrifuge, start mixing up so you have potentially a massive explosion. If Grangemouth goes out, or something like the Fergus pipeline, we're in trouble. So we have a challenge and we need to protect that. That's why I advocate those skills and extending your skills in regards to, this is just another example of Boeing. And that was Stuxnet. When was Stuxnet? Anybody have studied that at all?
2014.
2011, 14? I think it was about 2008. So you'd probably say, Eamonn, why are you worried about Stuxnet? And that's 2008, we haven't seen anything since. But yeah, the consequences, the fact that whether it was nation state or not, is the fact that somebody could go in and control the centrifuge, the fact that we could slow down the Iranian nuclear program. Could we do it now? 100% security is 100% security is illusionary. I like this one. I should have become a criminal. 80 million. I could be in Barbados smoking Habitos. 80 million. Did it happen? Is it just fiction? Is it just the news? There's a great article. I was going to screenshot it. I didn't get time this morning, but from the Financial Times. Have a look at it. Yes, it did. The poor guy in charge of Bangladeshi Bank came in on a Friday evening, come in on a Friday morning, and he would administer, or he would deal with the various transactions in regards to the SWIFT network. The SWIFT network sends our significant financial transactions between our central bank across the globe. Billions, billions, trillions. So this guy in the poor Bangladeshi bank came in, he says, ooh, so many transactions, 46 transactions in an hour that ordinarily they get 1 or 2 a week. But apparently he decided, I'll deal with it on Monday and I'll go home. Now for me, in a policing service, in a fire brigade service, we need to provide that 24/7 cover. Whether that's true or not, but certainly I do believe 80 million stolen from. And I've no doubt at this moment in time, there is some broiler room, I use that from a fraud, so some concentration, some building of 50 to 60 very good technologists looking at the banking system in regards to trying to break in there from an organised crime perspective to take some money away. And again, just the simple stuff. And part of the role you would have in policing, and Gerry and I go out, and it's the prevention role, but you would be surprised how many stupid people will click on that email. And obviously, you know the consequences of that. I always like to put in these two next slides, just principally because most of you weren't born before Tim Berners-Lee, I won't say invented the internet, but my personal experience now is that the engineering of the internet is not designed, it's creaking. And when you see something like Dyn DOS being taken out on the eastern seaboard of America, and the consequences of that, the commercial consequences, where Netflix, Amazon, lots more for about 5 or 6 years couldn't operate. And I think we're going to see more of those type of attacks. But it'll never happen in Scotland, will it, Gerry? Never, because we've got such a good police force and we've got such great students and such great workers. But this was a recent one in regards to web stressor. And the web stressor, it's been taken down now, but certainly, yes, we had 2 individuals in Scotland hosting that service. And you'll all be aware of stressor kits and the implications. What you won't be aware of is that it slightly intrigues me, is the naivety of some people who are in gaming environments, not too far from your own wage, who are unaware the fact that somebody else is committing that sort of criminal activity on a global nature when they've rented out or just rented out some server space. So just be careful, because we will knock on your door. And obviously, when web stressor was taken out, it had been responsible for thousands upon thousands of the denial of service attacks. So just be careful. And remember, well, that's just another DDoS attack of that size. So you know now ransomware is a service. You can buy it down for $15. If it's not working, you can point and click. We'll give you that 24/7 service. And that's the challenge for us. And you don't need a shotgun to rub 50 grand anymore. You can just do it for the comfort of your own home. So you as an investigator, working for me and Gerry, or working for the organisation in a year's, 2 years' time, go and identify that culprit. Go and trace that individual through that bulletproof hoster in another jurisdiction. Follow the money. Go into the blockchain and come back to me with the evidence. They're the nice challenges we have in front of us. And on the more, I don't like going over to the other side, but in regards to, again, this is the challenge for policing every morning in regards to allocating resources. And here was a young man who was, unfortunately, took his life in regards to, because he was being extorted online. He had formed a relationship in a social media environment, thinking it was with a female in, I'll pick Jody in Alabama, but it happened to be a crime gang in the Philippines. And the relationship developed online. Some intimate pictures were shared, and then he was outed in regards to say, well, the threat was to out him in regards to, I'm going to send this to all your contacts. And he sadly took his life. Now that to me has real huge consequences. Now thankfully we solved that one, and the gang has been identified in the Philippines. We've had officers back and forth. So there's the sort of stuff we're involved in. I always promote managed services in regards to protecting, and you'll be part of this in regards to whether it's cybersecurity as a service, in regards to working for the managed companies that are up there, in regards to, you have ECS who have got the SOC, you've got Synopsys are up there, you've got Lloyds Banking Group. Lots of opportunities for you. Incident management, you just heard that from Paco in regards to, that's the growing area for employers at the moment. In regards to making sure you have the bag of tools to go out and investigate any type of cybercrime. And we're good at kind of threat detection. We're really good at IDPS and IPS in regards to looking at it, but we're not great at incident response. And lots of good news out there in regards to what's going on. Really excited about what's going on in Scotland in academia. We are producing lots of individuals who can, I work quite closely with the Cyber Academy at Napier. I work quite closely with all the universities. We've got great things going with apprenticeships, modern foundation and graduate apprenticeships. In fact, 11 of our staff are on doing an MSc in regards to this area of business. Christmas lectures, they're the type of stuff that you can also get involved with, and also lots of research and development about blockchain. Spoke last week to a really good society in Glasgow University and like to take part, our teams like to take part in capturing the flag in red versus blue. That's the future for us, and that's that young technologist. So it's not just about forensics. It's about the transition from dead to live. And that's apprenticeships. And I advocate here in regards to, yes, I said it earlier on, you're working in an environment and testing your skills in a sandboxed environment. You would never, ever think of going and committing a small crime and having a look at someone else's infrastructure. Of course you wouldn't. Smiles. Well, there's one thing doing it, and the other thing is leaving some sort of a digital footprint and getting caught. So I'm going back to that. I support you in what you're doing. I hugely, hugely love what you're doing, but I don't want you to get a stupid conviction for doing something that you shouldn't do. So just be careful in that one. And there's lots of opportunities out there to test those skills. Anybody bug bounting here? Really? Or just don't want to put my hand up? Tell them. Have a look at that. Jesus, there's money to be made. It's easy money to be made. In regards to having a look at trying to get the back door into applicants. Well done, sir. And that for me is a good way to earn money as a student. We're trying to develop a cybercrime hub in the centre of Scotland. When I say the centre, I'm speaking metaphorically, where we will have a law enforcement working with industry, working with academia, working with research and development, to provide a better service to Scotland in regards to, and all these participants will be here. Lots of good fun in that respect, and it's not all work. I think in regards to, you need to be aware of the growing kind of shift towards an accreditation and sets of standards for your SOC labs, your SIM tools, please go out and provide me with an overarching cybersecurity strategy. Crikey, where do we start? What's our BYOD policy? Bring your own disaster. What are you doing around all aspects of your cybersecurity? What's your insider threat? Threat detection is one thing, and you know you can do that. You've broken into all the systems. But please extend your knowledge and capabilities around that overarching cybersecurity strategy. GDPR is how far away? It's 15 minutes away, according to Cal. It's just giving me the 15 minutes wind up. Anybody receiving any, I think a next attack vector will be for spear phishing is GDPR emails. Anybody got any recently? Yeah. So just be careful of that. I've no doubt. And we just, here it's the basic, simple stuff, the stupid stuff, but we still have to educate our public in regards to how to improve their digital hygiene. And we do that quite regularly in our presentations. Oh, I have to play this video.
Oh, he's such a clever boy.
Such a clever boy. Custard cream
Spends all night
on his computer.
Listen, how smart is this? You know them shooter games? The other day he was losing, so he crashed the server. Proper whiz kid.
It's amazing what kids can do these days. Right, darling? Or what do they call it? DDoSing. That's it, I saw it on the telly.
And he's no dosser though, our Ronnie. 100% in maths. Every single exam for the last 2 years. Not to mention his GCSE coursework.
It's going to go a long way.
Down the M11 to Cambridge. Computer sciences degree.
Top career in computing. Internet billionaire by the time he's 25, the next Steve Gates. You know, he's very clever with his money too. He's got one. Chocolate finger.
We only give him a tenner a week. Told us he robbed a bank.
Anyway, that's probably enough of us rambling on.
No, not at all. In fact, best if we start again. From the beginning.
Oh, he's such a clever boy.
Ollie's such a clever boy. That would never happen to any of you guys. So just be careful out there. That's all I'm saying in regards to your activities. I really, really don't want to see you getting a stupid conviction. I'd rather see you come and work for us. Lots of fantastic opportunities for you. And that's just some of the recent ones. I would really love to see the next Jack Dorsey there in the audience. Or come from Scotland, for want of a better word. Who are you going to call? The Ghostbusters. And I suppose that's a challenge for us in Police Scotland. Because I have to make sure that we have teams located across the country that can go out with a competence and speak to you in the manner that you're addressing a systems analyst or a CISO or ISO in regards to what you want, in regards to logs, RAM, and having the capability to do that. But the most important thing is business continuity and to turn off your phone before you start speaking. One thing we do, and I'm going to ask Gerry, I've kind of dominated this input a wee bit. Gerry is going to come up and speak to us about, we work for the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. The name says resilience. And Gerry has been very successfully running a thing called Curious Frank, a set of tools called Curious Frank. Gerry, you have to come over here. Apparently the camera needs to see you.
This is weird, standing in the lecture theatre instead of sitting in the seats. And we used to always sit at the back as well. Nobody ever sat at the front. Thanks, Eamonn. What do I want to talk to you about? What do you do when you finish? So yeah, like Eamonn says, I work with the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. I'm not a policeman. I'm not on duty. So if anybody wants to buy me a drink, then that is fine. Eamonn's a policeman. He can't drink on duty.
You can buy me a drink if you want.
What I want you to think about when you graduate and when you get a job is some of the other skills, not just your technical skills that you've got. We all know that you can do it. We all know that you've got the technical skills that Eamonn's spoken about. But what I find a lot of the time, going out and speaking to clients who we do some security assessments for, we do some training and awareness, it's about whatever you're going to say to them, make it really simple and then make it even more simple. we're not very good at explaining some of the things that we do, some of the things that we find. We're not very good at explaining it to the chief executive of an organisation who looks through the report and he sees that SMB is vulnerable, or even simple things like SSL. They don't understand what it is. You've got to explain it to them like you would explain it to my 7-year-old daughter. And that's how I test things, is I speak to her and I say to her, look, this is what I'm doing and this is the result that we should get. If she understands it, then I know I can go and speak to a client and the client will understand it. Yeah, does that make sense? No matter how simple you think you've made it, make it even more simple so that they understand what it is that you're doing. Report writing is really important as well. And I remember when I was at university, I'm only 21 by the way, it's just working with Eamonn that's made me look this old.
Funny guy.
When I was at university, you would be given an assignment and you could go off on a little tangent and you could talk about whatever you wanted in your report and you would still pass it. That would be fine. You might only get a B instead of an A+ because you didn't quite answer all the questions in it. But when it comes to industry, when you're working in industry, whether that's for the police or whether it's for NCC or MWR or any of these other organisations, you've got to stick to what the facts are and you've got to stick to what you've actually seen and what you've actually done. You can't just wander off like I am in my presentation and talk about things that you think might be of interest to them. You've got to focus on answering the question that these people have given you. When you're being given a scope to do a test, that's what you test. You go through that scope, you answer the questions that are relevant to that scope in your report, and you make sure, I'm going to say it again, you make sure that it's nice and simple. A lot of these reports aren't going to the technical people. I was speaking to a couple of technical people yesterday. We were talking about incident response, which is something that businesses are beginning to look more and more at. We've spent a lot of years trying to get businesses to focus on cyber security and say you need to make sure your systems are secure. Businesses are starting to do that, and now we're starting to think, right, okay, well, what do we do if an incident does happen? What are we going to do? Everybody knows what to do when the fire alarm goes off. Do we know what happens when we get hit by ransomware? And I was speaking to a couple of technical guys in an organisation, and they were saying the board don't get it. They think it's some mystical, magical thing. And every time they get hit with an incident, there's 2 of them in the IT team. One of them's under the bonnet trying to fix things, and the other one is trying to field phone calls from everybody going, when's it going to be fixed? When's it going to be fixed? So it'll be fixed a lot quicker if you leave me alone to actually go and do some work and get it fixed. And we've got to communicate that to the board level. So we've got to say to them, look, it's just like any other incident. You need to have a plan in place. You need to know exactly what you're going to do, who's going to do it, who deals with the media, who deals with the staff and tells the staff what's happening, who's looking after the... Did you do that?
I did that.
Technology. Who's dealing with all these things? You know what's going to happen if there's a flood or if there's a fire. You've got a disaster recovery plan for that in place. We need to start talking to these organisations about incident response and what we do. But we need to break it down into baby steps for them. Really simple steps. You can't just say to them, you can't just say to them, the IT department will fix it. You need to make sure that the marketing department know exactly what's going to happen with their social media accounts. I said to these 2 technical guys yesterday, I says, what happens if you get a ransomware attack and then somebody takes over your Twitter account? And he looked at me, he went white, and he said, I've never thought about our social media accounts in terms of security. I don't even know who's got the passwords for it. Yeah. So we've got to break all these little bits down. We've got to show them every step of the way. It's really important we understand what the criminals do and how the criminals work so that we can then go into organisations and say, look, this is where the attack vector is. You spoke about GDPR and the emails. How many hundreds of emails are you getting saying, our privacy policy is changing to help protect you better? It's changing on the 25th of May, which is a mere coincidence. That's the same day as GDPR comes into effect. But you were saying, oh, you think that's going to be an attack vector. I think it's already an attack vector. If I was a criminal, I'd be sending out hundreds of emails from PayPal and eBay and Facebook saying, my terms and conditions have changed. And we need to make people aware that these are the things that are happening. But we need to do it in a simple, easy for them to understand way, without using too many technical terms. Any questions for Eamonn?
We're kind of, now I'm not using the mic, which is good. No, I'm not going to use the mic.
There's a gentleman up there that's got a question.
Yeah, no, just before question. So I just want to kind of sum up in regards to saying, in regards to, I use this vehicle to advertise a role maybe within law enforcement. We're being probably a bit candid there in regards to saying, wherever you are, in the very fact that you've done ethical hacking, the very fact that you're going to go on and work in security is your the bite back of the life. And that to me is hugely, hugely important.
Okay.
So I just use this opportunity to tell you about, because we want the best in police, of course we do. I work for that organisation. And that's what with Gerry. And the Scottish Business Resilience Centre is, Curious Frank is a commercial arm to it. But we are now recruiting for our next tranche of ethical hackers. We have that great relationship with Cabertay. But we also have a very good relationship with the security teams in lots of the large organisations across the UK. That's why I say to you, if you're interested in that type of role in law enforcement, security, support security teams within the banks, within oil and gas, I'd like to see. Questions?
Gentleman, just right there.
So your first video was mentioned like the large influx of IoT devices, but how much are you looking at them in investigations to like push forward with?
Great question. Really great question. The challenge for us is to find. I think our backlog at the moment is around 6 to 8 months for phones and about 6 months for computers. You know, your phone you have now is so much larger than the phone you used to have. The key for me is that if I give you a certain device to examine and you need to spend 3 to 4 days examining those devices in, say, an inquiry, are we missing something more important? So we're seeing everything. Everything's coming in now. A move towards vehicle telemetry in regards to the number of the SIM card, the SIM card or some sort of a media device in most vehicles. We're seeing a huge transition, of course, to smartphones. We're seeing a huge transition to cloud-based services. So the range coming in, even as somebody mentioned it in law enforcement, they had a media card from the fridge. So and we go on to this argument about secured by design. So the Internet of Things is just a challenge for me. We just need to have the right people to be able to understand that we can now attack your house via, whatever the heating software is. What's it in?
Nest.
And that's only going to increase. And that's the way it is. What we're trying to encourage industry is about secure by design. Because we never think about security. Security prevention, most generally as individuals and organizations, we don't do that. But what we're trying to do, and we're trying to encourage through government, is think about security before. It's a really good question. So our forensic challenge will never go away. It will only increase.
Have we got time for one more question, Colin? One more question? Anybody got a question?
Hi, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So like you talked about people like as young kids who are just like messing with computers will capture charge like quite easily because like it's just like what kids do. Do you not feel like there should be, given that the UK and Scotland have such a need for this kind of help, do you not think that these like kids should have more leniency in their like sentencing and their...
You raised 2 or 3 points there in regards to. So the question is about the culpability or the fact that we have an organised crime gang would be much more mens rea and much more of a criminal mind than young people in regards to the extension of the gaming into maybe a little bit of hacking and then some more serious hacking. Our job as the police is to report that to the judicial system. I don't make a decision. I will say to you that we have various exercises that we identify people who are on the cusp of grey hat activity. We take them away on workshops. We take them away on boot camps. We try and tell you that, yeah, you can do this, but we're trying to get you back on the road for it. We will never be, well, certainly in this jurisdiction, I'm not saying there's a leniency, but everything is in proportion.
I think we need to identify these people quicker and make sure that they're pointed on the right path. I speak to a lot of youngsters who are really interested in getting into security of some description, and they don't know where to go to practice their skills and try things. And the majority of these kids that are getting caught, all they're doing is experimenting, and It maybe does seem a bit harsh, but that's the law. And I think our educators, so the schools, and our their parents, we need to educate the parents as well and say, look, this is a genuine career path where you can earn a lot of money and you can do some good in it. You need to encourage your kids in the right way rather than locking them in the bedroom and thinking that they're playing games and ignoring what they're doing. So we need to identify them quicker and make sure that they're pointed on the right path before they do something that they shouldn't do.
And never refer to them as kids, the young people. No, listen, we're here for a while. Gerry is obviously going to hang around. The Ethical Hacking Society will participate with Kyle and Mikey and some of the others. So I wish you every success in whatever career you choose. Every success in life. Thank you for your attention. And the email address is up there if you want to give us an email with as a potential employee or maybe some help